Forced to Marry My Bully. This video contains the complete unabridged audiobook. I ended up with the guy who once bullied me at school. When the morning light poured into the room, I barely moved my arm. The arm around my waist only tightened, pulling me closer. Adrian Carter lowered his head and kissed the back of my neck, his deep voice tinged with the roughness of just waking up. "Did you fall asleep last night?" I froze for a moment, then obediently nodded. If this had been before, maybe I would have resisted a little. But after 3 weeks with him, I'd learned one thing. It's easier just to give in. He took my hand from beside me, weaving his fingers through mine, thoroughly entertained by the gesture. He pressed his face into my hair, laughing softly. "This time, you didn't lose the ring I gave you?" He was talking about the diamond ring on my finger. There'd been 2 others before this one. One I'd hidden in the freezer, another I'd thrown into the fountain in the garden downstairs. I didn't want to remember what happened because of those 2 rings, but this third one meant only one thing. I was about to marry him, the person I once feared the most. I liked taking long showers. It meant I didn't have to face him, didn't have to think about those terrible memories. But even as I zoned out in front of the fogged-up bathroom mirror, the steam couldn't hide the marks on my body. My eyes were red as I stared at my reflection, until I heard Adrian's slow, deliberate knock at the door. "How long are you going to be in there?" "If you don't come out, I'm coming in." He's done it before, walking right in, without a word. I immediately turned off the water and wrapped myself in a towel. Breakfast was neatly arranged on the table as always, though Adrian didn't seem to have time to eat. The morning news played on TV as he smoothly tied his tie with long, clean fingers. When he noticed me staring at him, he leaned down and playfully tapped my nose. "Like what you see. Next time you can tie it for me." I turned my face away. He just chuckled, completely unfazed. He even picked up my glass of milk, taking a sip right from where my lips had touched. "Be good, and wait for me to come back. Tonight, I'll take you to look at wedding dresses." Adrian left. I stared blankly at the TV for a long time. Then I picked up the glass he'd just used and hurled it at the television. The TV just shook, but the glass shattered on the floor. The loud crash drew startled cries from the house staff. I hugged my knees and sat there crying. Adrian Carter used to be my nightmare. Back in high school, he was the one who bullied me the worst. He'd throw all the books from my bag down the stairs. He also got other classmates to ostracize me. With his encouragement, a group of girls would drag me to the bathroom and slap me across the face. Whenever he led the bullying, no one dared help me. Because Adrian was the son of a major corporation CEO. Our school had an entire building funded by his family. When he mocked me, no one dared speak up. It became some sort of twisted trend in our class. I heard a lot of girls were crazy about his looks. But to me, he was the demon who tortured me night after night, keeping me from ever getting any real sleep. Someone like him? And now, 7 years after graduation, he says he wants to marry me. I still can't stop shaking every time I see Adrian Carter. Even though we've been sharing a bed for 3 weeks now, no one ever helped me. When my mom found out someone like Adrian wanted to marry me, she could barely contain her excitement. She thought it was the luckiest thing that could happen. Adrian seems to have gotten a new car again. This time, the back seat is huge. But I never liked cars with big back seats. The divider between the front and back was already up. No one knew what he might do to me back there. But today, Adrian was unusually quiet. Maybe it was because I kept shaking. The temperature in the car was high, but I couldn't stop shivering. He didn't care about my reaction, just pulled me into his arms. "Claire, are you really this scared?" His low voice brushed against my ear, and he knew perfectly well who was the reason for my fear. "I'll take you to pick out a wedding dress later, okay?" I tried to control my trembling, but I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Who would have thought? The man who once pushed me step by step into hell, now speaking so gently about wedding dresses. The boutique Adrian took me to was in a private villa. Crystal chandeliers reflected dazzling lights, illuminating each wedding dress on the mannequins until they seemed to glow. I had no interest in looking, let alone choosing. I let Adrian and the designer discuss what custom style would suit me. I let the assistant measure my body without saying a word. There was a small garden behind the shop, which caught my attention much more than the wedding dresses. So while they chatted, I lifted my dress and wandered over to the little pond in the garden. There was a gate at the back of the garden. It looked like beyond that door was a road to endless freedom. To be honest, I'd thought about running away 1,000 times. But whenever I finally built up the courage to try, I was crushed to realize I had nowhere to go. My mom was desperate for me to marry Adrian Carter. She gripped my hand and begged me not to mess this up. I sat by the pond until Adrian finished his business and came to find me. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian was always like this, aloof and above it all. So I showed him my arm. There was a faint, round red scar on my wrist, the edges raised. "See? This is from your cigarette." I was talking about that time in high school, when he was in a bad mood for some reason. He dragged me to a corner and pressed a lit cigarette into my skin. It hurt so much, I forgot everything else he did after that. He stared at my wrist in silence, then crouched down in front of me. As much as I didn't want to admit it, Adrian's face really was perfect. Perfect. Like something carved by a master sculptor from ancient Greece. If he ever looked at you with soft eyes, you could drown in them. Maybe that's why, in the Bible, they say the devil has the most tempting face of all. He flicked his lighter, a flame dancing in the wind. Right in front of me, he lit a cigarette. I instinctively flinched, afraid he'd touch my skin with it again. But the next second, he pressed the burning tip into his own wrist, right where my scar was. He looked at me quietly. "Does that make you feel any better, Claire?" I lowered my eyes. The ash crumbled, and the fresh burn looked raw and harsh. Suddenly, he pulled me into his arms. "Claire, I wish I could take some of your pain away and carry it myself." Fireflies slowly drifted up from the pond in the summer night, and I stared at the shimmering moonlight on the water. "Adrian, you know it was you who gave me all this pain in the first place." His body went rigid for a moment, then he gently stroked my hair. "Then let me atone for it, okay?" I said nothing. That morning, after Adrian left, I threw my glass of milk at the TV again, just like always. Usually, one of the maids would just heat up a new glass of milk and bring it to me. But today, I didn't want it. I used to love milk. Back in school, my mom always made me take a bottle to class every morning. But one day when I got to class, Adrian was sitting on the desk in front of me. He was already tall back then, and when he leaned over, his shadow completely covered me. I heard people snickering. Someone said, "Let's have some fun, Adrian." So he smiled at me, holding out his palm. I handed him the bottle. As soon as he twisted the cap, before the scent of milk could reach me, he poured the whole thing right over my head. It soaked my nose, collarbone, collar, dress, everywhere. The smell clung to me, but while I cried, everyone else laughed. "Look at her. Who's she trying to seduce?" "I swear, Adrian, your sense of humor is twisted." Suddenly, his thumb brushed my cheek as he rested his chin in his hand in front of me. He lifted my chin, stared for a while, and smirked. Ugly. So now, I hate milk. But I probably hate Adrian Carter even more. When I knocked over my second glass of milk today, the maid almost got down on her knees, begging me to drink it. "Miss, please, just have some." I turned my head away and said I didn't want it, then my eyes landed on the phone by the sofa. I crawled over and pressed the button. This phone could only dial one number. This time, a man answered. Not Adrian. "Miss Quinn?" Oh, it was Adrian's assistant, the one who always drove. "I want to talk to Adrian. He's in a meeting, Miss Quinn." "I'll come to him." I hung up before he could say anything else. Security at this villa was tight, but I told the guard at the gate I was going to Adrian's office. I guess. Marrying Adrian does have its perks. No one stopped me. I walked all the way to the top floor without any trouble. Only when I was about to barge into the conference room did his assistant try to stop me. "Miss Quinn, you can wait in the lounge next door." But I pushed the conference room door open without hesitation. Sometimes, I don't even know what I really want to do. Maybe it's just that, living in the dark for so long, I want to drag someone down with me. Or maybe I just want to make a mess of things, so I can convince myself I'm completely worthless. That way, I won't have to care about whether someone like me is even worth saving. The conference room was filled with mostly middle-aged men. Adrian Carter, sitting at the head of the table, looked completely out of place among them. Just by his looks alone. Everyone was staring at me. Dozens of eyes. Maybe the AC was set too low, or maybe it was just nerves. But I started trembling again. Suddenly, someone picked me up. That was the first time I ever smelled smoke on Adrian. It was cold and harsh, just like him. "When did you get here?" I'd just been listening to him scold his employees, and now his face had completely changed, his tone gentle as he spoke to me. Because of my interruption, the meeting was forced to pause. When I came back to my senses, I was already in his office. His office was huge, at the top floor, with a view of the city's tall buildings through the glass. Standing that high up, you felt like you could control the fate of everyone hurrying below, like crushing an ant, someone like me, without any effort. He threw me onto the bed in the room next to his office. He loomed over me, untying his tie with one hand. The dark red silk slipped through his fingers. I realized by barging in, I must have pissed him off a bit. He didn't always spoil me. "Did you miss me that much today?" My long hair was sprawled across the bed, and he played with it, letting it twine around his fingers. I stared at him quietly. "Adrian, do you have any milk in your office?" He froze, clearly not expecting that question. This lounge must have been his personal space, connected to his office. The shirts and suits scattered on the bed all belonged to him. After a moment, he grabbed a carton of milk from the mini fridge and handed it to me. "Did you run out at home?" He didn't finish the sentence, but I grabbed the milk from his hand. I twisted off the cap and poured the entire carton over his head. He only paused for a second. He could have dodged, but he didn't. Milk ran down his face and neck, and even then, damn it, he still looked ridiculously good. "Adrian, this is exactly how you poured milk over my head back in school," I said, looking him in the eye. Probably no one else had ever seen him this disheveled. Milk slid down his brow. He clenched his jaw, then just chuckled. Maybe when he took out another carton from the fridge, I should have realized what he was about to do. But I didn't react until he twisted the cap off. Only then did my eyes widen, and I realized what was coming. The milk straight from the fridge was icy cold. When he poured it over my head, I shivered uncontrollably. The liquid slid down my chin and into my clothes. Turns out cold milk felt nothing like what I remembered. I once overheard the housekeeper whispering, "She must be crazy, not wanting to marry into such a good family." But if I'm crazy, Adrian is even crazier. Maybe I was just stunned for too long. After he finished pouring the milk, he even brushed the hair away from my face. "There, now you're just like me." I suddenly shoved him away. "Claire, you know it's bad to make me angry, don't you?" He only needed to pinch my chin and I wouldn't dare move. Honestly, it wasn't that I was afraid of him, I just hated the consequences. Or maybe, the impression he left on me was just too deep. He carried me to the bathroom. Steam blurred his figure, and the harsh lights made everything shimmer. "Adrian, it's been 7 years. Why did you come back for me?" My voice was hoarse. I felt like I couldn't go on anymore. As always, his answer was silence. He carried me back to bed. He even tucked me in so carefully, making sure the blanket was snug. Honestly, I hadn't slept well in days. I couldn't even remember the last time I fell asleep peacefully. While we were in the bathroom, someone had already changed the sheets. There was no trace of his scent left, and somehow I fell asleep faster than usual. My dreams were all jumbled up. Memories of high school crashed over me like waves. Half awake, I heard voices beside me. They must have been cleaning ladies, young voices chatting. "Hey, do you know who barged into the meeting just now? Miss Evans, Mr. Carter's fiancé." "Huh? But she's really rude, isn't she? Mr. Carter spoils her." "Why? I've never seen her before. Wasn't she just found a few weeks ago?" "I just heard, that she looks a lot like his first love. He couldn't get his first love, so he settled for someone similar." When I woke up again, the sky was burning with clouds, and the fiery light poured into the room. I could hear the soft sound of someone turning a page. As soon as I moved, he noticed. Adrian pressed the back of his hand to my forehead. "You have a fever. Why didn't you drink your milk this morning?" I opened my mouth but found it hard to make a sound. My throat hurt, my whole body felt dry and weak. All I could do was shake my head. Adrian gave a quiet laugh and picked me up. He'd changed clothes, no trace of cigarette smoke on him. He could be incredibly attentive about small details like that. Once he realized I hated the smell of smoke, he never smoked in front of me again. "I'm done with milk." When he carried me to the back seat of the car, I finally forced myself to speak despite my sore throat. He paused for a second, almost laughed out of frustration. "You really have to do everything the opposite way, don't you?" Maybe he was right. Maybe I just wanted to see him lose his mind and give up on me. But I didn't bother saying another word, only curled up in my seat. The car pulled away. Clouds streamed by outside the window, the sky on fire with streaks of red. It felt like the flames could burn right into your heart. Adrian took me home. There was someone waiting on the living room sofa. I tried to remember the first time I'd met Ivy Lane, but nothing about it really stood out. I just remembered thinking how much we looked alike. So I watched as she leaped up to hug Adrian the moment she saw him. For a long, awkward pause, Adrian stood there frozen. Not until her hair brushed against his neck and she called his name in excitement did he finally react. "Adrian, I'm home." The girl in his arms was still in shock, so I reminded them, she said. "She's back?" Adrian swallowed hard. For a while, his voice sounded dry and rough. You're back." I'd never seen him so lost before, confused, almost defeated. After that, Ivy moved into the villa. She was always with Adrian. Sometimes I remembered the conversation I'd overheard in Adrian's office that day. They said I was just a stand-in for his first love. But even after Ivy came back, Adrian never gave up on marrying me. It was just that, instead of sitting at opposite ends of the dinner table, now there was Ivy sitting between us. She even insisted on following Adrian to work. She was the type who loved to talk. I didn't understand. If the girl he really loved had returned, why didn't he let me go? Was he just planning to keep me around to torment me, just like before? Adrian started coming home late every night. Tonight, I didn't see Ivy anywhere, but Adrian came in looking a little disheveled. His tie was loose, hair a mess, and the dim lights in the living room made his skin look pale. His eyes were red under his brow. The moment he saw me, he gave a faint smile. "Claire, you're getting more rebellious every day." He pinned me to the sofa, but even now he steadied my waist so I wouldn't bump against the armrest. His eyes burned dark red, like a dangerous wave. "Where's your Ivy tonight, Adrian?" I looked up at him and asked, but he only scoffed. "I lost her. She left with you this morning. I lost her a long time ago." I couldn't put words to what I was feeling, so I looked away. He leaned his forehead against mine, and for a split second, I thought I saw a hint of wetness in his eyes. "Claire, you didn't drink your milk again today, did you? You throw it out whenever I'm gone?" It's true. I hadn't had milk for days. Maybe I was just as stubborn as he was. If I didn't want to do something, no one could force me, but Adrian didn't care what I wanted. Soon, he was heating a fresh glass for me. He sat in front of me, watching. "Drink it." I thought, it's just a glass of milk. It doesn't really matter. What he cared about was whether I listened to him. I kept my eyes down. I tried to resist plenty of times, but it never worked out the way I hoped. Tonight was no different. When I refused to drink, Adrian just sighed. He took a sip himself, then grabbed my chin and kissed me. I kept my mouth shut, but he forced it open, letting the sweet milk spill into my mouth. The taste was heavy and sweet, and he was a man who always did as he pleased after drinking. I felt terrible. Something inside me blocked up, and I started crying. He finally let go when I sobbed. The night was quiet and cruel. I stared at the vase of dried flowers in the entryway. A long time passed before I heard his voice, low and rough, almost broken. He pulled me into his arms, his body hot and tense. He kept whispering apologies in my ear, over and over. "Don't cry. I'm sorry, Claire. It's my fault. Please don't cry, Claire." The way he acted made me almost believe that all along, I'd been the one he cherished most. A man who's satisfied always becomes easier to deal with. I pushed my luck and told Adrian I didn't want to see Ivy anymore. The next day, I saw Ivy Lane crying as she packed her suitcase. I really didn't understand Adrian at all. He was never the type to listen to me. Besides, wasn't Ivy supposed to be his first love? When I can't figure things out, I just ask directly. But he only squinted at me, reaching out to ruffle my hair in that dismissive way of his. "Claire, you're not anyone's replacement. See? Words come so easily to people like him. He'll never tell me what he's really thinking unless he wants to. I'm always the one being played." Maybe it was the heat. Even the best food from the housekeeper tasted bland to me these days. I choked down the last bite of pork chop and dashed to the bathroom to throw up. That's when I felt my heart suddenly skip a beat. My period hadn't come in months. With the way Adrian was, never using protection and never giving me birth control, this was probably inevitable. I was pregnant. Adrian didn't know yet. I stared at my flat stomach in a daze. But honestly, did I really have any say in whether this child would stay or not? Adrian had been coming home earlier these days, and every time, the first thing he'd do was hug me. Sometimes I couldn't tell if he was the same man who once kicked me to the floor on a whim. His bottom line seemed to have been stretched thinner and thinner. Sometimes I overheard him talking to his friends on the phone. They'd be calling him out to play cards. He'd laugh softly, looking down at me curled up on the couch. Spending time with my wife. A chorus of groans erupted from the phone. I could even hear it from my side. Still babying your little psycho. Yeah, in Adrian's friend's eyes, I was probably exactly that. A crazy girl. A nutcase who refused to be a proper Mrs. Carter, always making trouble. One night, I had a nightmare. I couldn't even tell if it was a dream or a memory. Adrian led a group of people, cornering me in the classroom, reading my scores out loud. Because of their harassment, I couldn't focus on my studies. My grades were terrible. But Adrian was always number one. He waved his test paper above my head, grinning mockingly. Damn, you really are an idiot. I jolted awake, cicadas screaming outside in the hot night. It felt like the darkness would never end. Adrian's breathing was steady next to me. I straddled him and wrapped my hands around his neck. In the dark, he looked calm but resigned. Trying to strangle me? Adrian, you're the one who dragged me down to hell, I whispered, tightening my grip. He just stared at me. I thought, maybe one day I'd really do it, finally have the heart to end him. But in the end, I couldn't, even when he let me do whatever I wanted. At lunchtime today, someone I really didn't want to see showed up at the house. Even though it had been years since I'd last seen Rachel Carter, I still instinctively started shaking when I saw her. Rachel is Adrian's younger sister. Back in high school, during the worst of Adrian's bullying, Rachel was the only one who ever stepped in to help me. For a while, I naively believed she was my only light, my only savior in all that mess. She'd tell me not to be afraid of her brother, that she would protect me, that nobody would dare touch me if she was there. Later, I found out. The only reason she helped me then was because she was fighting with her brother. Once they made up, she went right back to tormenting me. She even got a bunch of girls to corner me in the bathroom and take humiliating photos. In the end, those pictures all ended up in Adrian's hands. Those memories are so painful that, seeing Rachel again, I almost threw up on the spot. She clearly couldn't stand the sight of me either. When Adrian forced me to marry him, Rachel made the biggest scene. She cursed me to my face, saying I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve him. Now, seeing me, of course, she didn't bother hiding her disgust. But I was more than happy to watch her throw a fit, so I glared right back. She had the classic spoiled princess attitude. Seeing me like that, she just folded her arms and sneered. Claire Evans, my brother spoils you way too much. I didn't say anything. I'm telling you, you and I are enemies for life now. Don't expect me to ever accept you as part of our family. Honestly, sometimes she's just ridiculously childish. I had no idea why she came today, but her picking a fight was just boring. Adrian, can't you break up with this woman already? I finally understood her reason for coming when Adrian got home. She just didn't want me marrying her brother. Honestly, on that point, we actually wanted the same thing. Adrian reached out to ruffle my hair, but I dodged him. He looked down, his voice low and calm. Not happening. Rachel stomped her foot in frustration, glaring at me. I rolled my eyes at her, not realizing Adrian was watching. He just laughed quietly. Adrian, stop spoiling her. Look at you, you've totally changed because of her. At the dinner table, Rachel kept complaining until Adrian finally told her, just eat? That shut her up. The whole meal was eaten in silence. I didn't have any appetite anyway, and I kept feeling nauseous. After the meal, Adrian stepped out to take a call. That left just me and Rachel at the table. I definitely didn't want to hang around, but as I got up to leave, she suddenly stopped me. My head was spinning, her figure blurry. Then she finally showed her claws. Claire Evans, I still have those photos of you, you know. Sometimes I can't help taking them out and looking at them, tisk kisk. You know how pathetic you looked in those? You must have been born for that kind of thing. Someone like you isn't even good enough to warm my brother's bed. She didn't get to finish. I picked up the teapot and poured it all over her. Her shrill scream cut through the house. Rachel's perfect makeup was ruined by water. Naturally, her screams brought Adrian running. She threw water at me. Rachel's voice was shaky and teary, and I heard every bit of it. Adrian stood beside her, silently watching me. I don't know what came over me. In the past, no matter what Rachel said, I would never have lost my temper like this. But this time, I just couldn't hold it in. I glared right at her and said, word by word, "You're the pathetic one." For a few seconds, everything went still. Even Rachel stopped crying, until I felt a burning pain on my cheek. Only then did I realize what happened. I pressed my tongue against the inside of my cheek in disbelief. Honestly, I still couldn't believe it. Adrian had slapped me, just because I insulted his sister. I looked up at him, eyes wide, but I still couldn't see clearly. The chandelier overhead was too bright. Adrian was even more stunned than I was. Then he panicked and called my name, but I couldn't hear him. I didn't want to. I grabbed the fruit knife from the table and stabbed myself in the stomach. It's ridiculous, but even in that moment, there was still a tiny part of me that wished that Adrian could have been the father of my child. The most common thing I heard while lying in the hospital was the sound of cicadas singing in the summer, the endless white windowsills, spotless ceilings. The IV line in my wrist was like a needle stuck deep in my bones. I lost track of how many days I spent in that bed or how many people came to see me. Doctors and nurses by the window, men and women. At some point, I couldn't hear anything anymore. Broken memories rolled through my dreams, Adrian and Rachel bullying me, over and over again. I forgot I was already in hell, yet still foolishly hoped to be saved by the devil himself. I never thought I'd fall for Adrian's gentle side. I couldn't believe that for a moment I actually thought he was different. My stomach hurt for days. The stitches were so ugly, even I couldn't bear to look. Some nights I couldn't sleep at all, the 4 burning in my vein. I'd press it again and again. The doctor said it was a soft tube. It could stay in for a long time, but it hurt. On the 4th try, I yanked it out. Blood spurted, but it didn't really hurt. Honestly, I couldn't feel pain anymore. I couldn't feel other people's presence either. I just wanted to be alone. Whether lying in bed or dying, it didn't matter to me anymore. I secretly threw away the pills the nurse gave me. No one else had to take them, just me. They put a new 4 in my other wrist, just like I could never fight my fate. Later, I realized it was my mother by my side. She cried more than I did, tears every day, but I didn't want to respond to her. She kept begging me, "Don't do this, don't do that, please get better, please talk to us." It's not that I didn't want to talk, I just didn't have the energy. I started counting time by watching the sunlight move across the window. One night, I still couldn't sleep. The door to my hospital room opened. How do I describe those footsteps? Too familiar. So familiar I never dared forget. That, at least, I could be sure of. It was the first time Adrian visited me. He clearly didn't expect me to be awake, but we locked eyes. I thought I could look at him calmly, but as he came closer, I couldn't help myself. I grabbed my mother's metal lunchbox from the window and hurled it at him. He didn't dodge, just stumbled back. That's when I noticed. His hair was messy, his face tired. There was a bandage on his elbow. The night was always like this, cicadas singing outside, but silence and cruelty eating at my soul inside. "I heard from the nurse you've been secretly throwing away your meds." Adrian's voice was low and rough. He walked toward me step by step while I threw anything I could reach at him. "Claire." He called my name, looking as gentle as ever. Maybe that's what he was good at, using fake tenderness to lure me into a trap. He was just deceiving me, kicking me to the ground, grabbing my neck and kissing me. And the saddest thing is, I almost forgot who it was that pushed me into hell. There was a commotion outside the hospital room, but the summer vitality felt like it had nothing to do with me. Adrian dragged his sister Rachel in by the collar. "I'm not apologizing to that woman. Adrian, you're being ridiculous." She struggled the whole time, nearly falling to her knees at my bedside when Adrian kicked the back of her leg. "You!" She glared at me, full of hatred. It all felt like a ridiculous farce, but I didn't care anymore. Adrian standing behind her annoyed me even more, so I just closed my eyes, lying in bed, pretending I didn't see any of it. "Sorry." In the end, Rachel muttered the words. I didn't respond. "Claire." I heard Adrian call my name. Honestly, I hadn't planned on opening my eyes. But then Rachel's voice jumped up 8 octaves. She was just too loud. "What are you doing? Adrian, get up." Adrian Carter, president of his own company, kneeling down, probably not something you see every day. He knelt right by my hospital bed, his head bowed, the sunlight pouring over his shoulders. Rachel tugged at him, crying, trying to pull him up. "Adrian, get up. Don't kneel." "Why are you kneeling to her? Look at yourself." Adrian. At some point, Rachel was sobbing uncontrollably at his side. I didn't bother watching them. I couldn't feel anything anymore. Rachel couldn't get him up and finally ran out of the room crying. The cicadas outside the window seemed to shrink into the quiet room. I stared into Adrian's eyes. Maybe the sunlight was too strong. A halo shone in the rim of his pupils. Somehow, that look and the sound of cicadas felt like memories from another life. Suddenly, I wanted to cry. I didn't even know why. When you spend too long in a hospital bed, you become deeply sick of everything. It's not that I hated the idea of dying, I just felt trapped in such a small space. The nurses finally let me take a walk in the garden downstairs. Most days in summer were hot, so there weren't many patients outside. I liked sitting under the shade. In the middle of the courtyard was a white piano. It must have been donated by some patient long ago. If you were lucky, you could catch someone playing. These days, there was always a teenage boy there, 17 or 18, playing the piano. What stood out was his white hair. His skin was pale, almost translucent, but still healthy. So it wasn't albinism, just a dyed color. He looked so gentle, not like some rebellious kid. I watched him for 2 or 3 days. On the 4th day, he didn't show up. Honestly, I'd been itching to play that piano for a while. My mom forced me to take lessons as a child, and I'd even passed the highest level exam. The piano hadn't been tuned in a while, so it sounded a bit off. I played awkwardly, relying on memory to get through the pieces. But when I got stuck, forgetting a chord in the transition, a pale hand suddenly reached out beside me. With his eyes closed, the boy finished the melody I'd been struggling with. Strangely, I wasn't even afraid. Lately, just being touched by a nurse would make me flinch, but not with him. The noon sun was harsh, the air shimmering, and the world felt so far away. I stared at him in surprise as he sat down beside me. We played a duet together. After high school, I'd forgotten what music ever meant to me. I'd dreamed as a kid of being a pianist. When the final notes faded, the boy turned to me with a smile. His eyes crinkled, dimples appeared. "My name's Ethan Brooks. Sis, long time no see." I didn't have any memory of Ethan Brooks, but he kept telling me that we'd met a long time ago. "It's fine if you forgot me. You'll remember someday," he'd say. He practiced piano with me, brought his game console so we could play together. I knew his presence in my life was strange, maybe even suspicious, but I couldn't bring myself to dislike him. He always smiled at me. He wasn't like my mom, who spent every day in tears. He wasn't like Adrian either, who hovered by my bedside at night like a ghost. Ethan was just Ethan. He was the only one who treated me well, in a way that felt pure. And maybe feelings really are something you can sense. When he smiled at me, I could forget the pain, if only for a little while. "Do you want me to take you away, Claire?" he asked one afternoon. I didn't think I could ever escape from Adrian, but for some reason, I nodded and chose to trust him. So that night, Ethan hid out in my hospital room until everything went quiet. He snuck me out through the window. It was just the 2nd floor, not too high. He took my hand, and my heart had never pounded so hard. He was wearing a white shirt, his fingers brushing my wrist. There was no moon that night. Everything was dim and hazy. I noticed a tiny mole under the arch of his eyebrow. Suddenly, I started crying. He knelt in front of me and wiped my tears away with his sleeve. "I can't remember who you are, Ethan Brooks, but why do you feel so familiar?" "It doesn't matter if you can't remember, Claire Evans. We have to look forward," he said gently. His ride was a bicycle, and I sat on the back as he pedaled. The night wind wove through us, and the hospital was near the ocean, so if we kept riding, we'd reach the crashing waves. He pedaled and pedaled, taking me to the very end of the road, but soon, the glow of car headlights appeared behind us. Several cars, closing in. In the end, reality always catches up, no matter how romantic the escape, or how much you like the person you're with. Ethan never said a word. He just kept pedaling, but a bike could never outrun 4 cars. The wind at the cliffside was wild, but finally, he stopped. The car's headlights were blinding, and people stumbled out, running toward me. Adrian grabbed me and pulled me into his arms. He smelled strongly of smoke. No matter how I struggled, I couldn't break free. His voice was hoarse, as if he wanted to pull me into himself. "Claire, if he ever tries to take you away, I'll kill him." Adrian and I had a huge fight. Actually, it was just me going crazy at him. Who could ever stand up to someone with his wealth and power? In the end, I left the hospital, but I didn't go back to Adrian's place. I threatened a hunger strike, and he finally let me move back into my own apartment. The catch was, every day, he had to watch me drink that glass of milk. At this point, even he probably didn't trust there wasn't something in the milk. But I didn't care anymore. He wanted me to drink, so I drank. I looked him in the eye, chugged the whole glass, and slammed the door in his face. I took off the third ring and pawned it, never intending to get it back. Ethan Brooks suddenly got very sick. I know it's weird, since I hadn't known him for long, but I wanted so badly to save him. If I had to explain why, it's just that no one had ever been so genuinely kind to me. It seemed like everyone else's affection came with strings attached, but Ethan's smile was just for me. I took him to all sorts of hospitals, but nothing worked. What was even worse was that Adrian was always trailing behind me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. He said he could get Ethan the best medical care, so I should stop exhausting myself. I ignored him. Day by day, Ethan got worse. He started collapsing, coughing up blood in front of me, fainting without warning. Eventually, Ethan ended up in a hospital room that Adrian arranged, but his health only got worse. It rained and rained in June, and one gloomy evening when the sunset and the rain had blotted out all the color in the sky, Ethan passed away. Life is full of goodbyes. That morning, he'd promised we'd go see the crabapple flowers at Moonview Park. What did Ethan Brooks really mean to me? We'd only known each other for a short time. I shouldn't have been this sad, or this angry. I thought I had nothing left to lose. That day, I didn't cry. I just sat in his hospital room for a long, long time. I just lost the last person I could lose. That was all. You see? Now you're stuck with just me again. On the third day after Ethan's death, the rain finally stopped. Adrian leaned against the door, handing me a glass of milk. He was wearing a black overcoat. He always looked so put together, but who knew what rot lay underneath? He watched me drink the milk slowly, then reached out of habit, to ruffle my hair. I dodged him. If you looked closely, Adrian had a tiny mole at the corner of his eye too. His dark eyes seemed ready to swallow me whole. I stared at him. Did he know Ethan was dead? Did Adrian have anything to do with it? A sun shower drifted into the room. He lowered his head, looked at me for a long moment, and then kissed me. I hated how well he knew my body, hated the feeling his hands left behind. As he bit my lips, my heart thundered in my chest. Adrian, I'll drag you to hell with me. I'm already in hell, Claire Evans. I married Adrian Carter and received a flood of fake congratulations from friends and relatives. He started indulging me in every way. Whatever I wanted, he'd say yes. I casually mentioned the heat, and he flew me to the other side of the world, to New Zealand. There really were snow-capped mountains there all year round, and it was wintertime. Are you cold? He had already bundled me up in layers, but still tried to add a scarf, which I dodged. He laughed softly behind me. Why do you look like a little bear? I didn't answer. When we spoke, our breath would cloud in the chilly air. We stayed at a luxury lodge at the foot of Mount Cook, clearly meant for the wealthy, with every amenity. It was the off-season, but I still saw a few other Chinese guests. What do you want to do tomorrow? Adrian used his long fingers to butter some bread. I always made a mess, but he made it look effortless. Finally, he sighed and switched plates with me. The lodge had a big dog that looked fierce, but after a few days I realized it was just a goofball who'd wag its tail for food. So I tossed the bread Adrian had just fixed for me to the dog. He didn't expect that. Adrian nudged me under the table, half laughing. What did I do to deserve this, Claire Evans? I didn't bother replying. Outside, the snow was deep enough to reach your knees, and tourists were playing in the yard. The lodge's brochure talked about ancient legends surrounding the mountains. Alongside the Maori text, there was an English version. I flipped through it out of boredom. It claimed that if you climbed high enough, you might find a magical elf who could grant wishes. It was just a story for tourists. I barely glanced at it before setting it aside. But Adrian kept talking in my ear, annoying me. If you're so bored, why don't you go find me one of those elves? It was just an offhand remark, but he actually paused, looked at the brochure, and smiled. So, any wish can come true, huh? Maybe I really need that. I sighed. I didn't expect him to actually join the group climbing the mountain. There were a few serious hikers at the lodge, and Adrian decided to go with them. Mountaineering required a lot of gear. That night, I leaned against the door, arms crossed, watching him pack. He zipped up his jacket all the way, black eyes glinting in the snowy light. I had zero interest in hiking, so I didn't go. He smiled at me. "What's wrong? Don't want me to go?" "I hope you die on the mountain and never come back," I replied, glaring. He just laughed, walked over, and ruffled my hair. "Don't say things like that, Claire. Sometimes words have a way of coming true." The day Adrian left, the weather was perfect. The sunlight bounced off the snow and blinded me. I could barely see his face. He told me to wait for him. I just snorted and went back inside. With Adrian gone, I had more freedom. He wasn't around to cling to me, so I could do whatever I wanted. There were a lot of Chinese guests at the lodge, and I made friends with a girl around 16 or 17 who was there with her family for the summer. In the morning, the sky was endless and blue, but by afternoon, clouds had covered the mountain. A blizzard hit at dusk, cutting off all visibility. Adrian's climbing group had several members, and soon the lodge was buzzing with worry. Some families couldn't reach their loved ones. No signal on the mountain. The staff said not to panic. Many of the group were experienced climbers and could handle a storm. Even so, the atmosphere in the dining hall was tense. The staff said the rescue team wouldn't go out until morning. That night, I sat in the dining room next to the teenage girl, who slowly ate dinner as her parents, also in the group, were missing. "Emma, where have you been? Your aunt's been looking for you," a gentle woman's voice called out in Mandarin. I looked up and made eye contact. She paused, studying me. "Aren't you Claire Evans?" I was surprised she knew my name and raised my eyebrows. "You don't remember me? From Youngstown High, Class 11 Billions. Cindy Miller, your old classmate." At first, the mention of high school made me tense up, but all I felt was a weird disconnect. I tried to recall the faces of those who bullied me, but I couldn't see them clearly. Their features were all blurred together. "We used to hang out. I gave you snacks, remember? You were close to Rachel Carter. Oh, and Adrian Carter. You're still with Adrian, right? You two were such a perfect couple back then. It's a shame you transferred out before graduation, though. We all really liked you." My mind buzzed. Standing there, listening to her, it was like my brain went blank. Rachel Carter, Adrian Carter, my best friends, the people I liked the most. But some memories felt broken, as if static drowned out all sound. I ran back to my room. Maybe someone called out to me, but I didn't care. Adrian and I had a double room. His luggage was scattered everywhere, the bedside lamp on. I curled up in the corner, hands over my head, trying to stop shaking. I pulled out my phone, but it slipped and hit the floor. I opened the search bar, hands trembling, and looked up Youngstown High. I sorted the results by date, scrolling through post after post, until one from years ago caught my eye. Why were there police cars at school tonight? Anyone at evening study know what happened? Yeah, and an ambulance too. I saw from the window during class. Details? Come on, spill. A girl was carried out covered in blood. It was terrifying. Which class? Can't say, but it was a scene. Jeez. Was it an attack? Worse than that. Come on. What happened? Can't say. If I told, I'd get in trouble. Forget it. Actually, there's not much I don't already know. I looked down at my stomach. Thinking back, I'd assumed I was pregnant that day. But my period was irregular, and throwing up was just heat stroke. I never even took a test, just decided I was pregnant. Isn't that ridiculous? I believed it so completely. But, in reality, I could never get pregnant again. People are such strange creatures when it comes to facing the truth. Looking back, I think I'd been lying to myself in so many moments before. That's why, when I finally remembered what really happened, it felt like my mind was being torn apart. Why were my memories always so fragmented? Why could I remember Adrian burning my wrist with a cigarette, but not what happened next? Why was Adrian so obsessed with making sure I drank that glass of milk? Why did Ivy Lane and Ethan Brooks appear so suddenly, without explanation? Why did his friends all call me crazy? That summer, in the endless noise of cicadas during junior year, I experienced the most brutal, bloody, violent thing in my life. It started so innocently. Some workers came to the school to install air conditioning and asked me for directions. That's all it was. I just pointed the way. Suddenly, one of them smirked and dragged me into the boys' bathroom. From the last flash of sunset to the stars coming out, for 3 hours I was subjected to torture that doesn't even have a name. Was it really Adrian who burned me with a cigarette? Was it really Adrian who slapped me? Was it really milk that was poured over my head? Later, I heard from the police that one of those bastards was high, and that's why they did something so insane. I think they were all eventually caught, but I spent every day in the hospital crying my eyes out. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore, staring at the marks on my body in the mirror. Adrian was my boyfriend at the time, but how could I face him after what happened? How could I possibly talk to him? All I wanted was for him to give up on me. Please, just stop looking at me. He was such a good person, and I wasn't worthy anymore. I was such a coward, so weak. So, in the end, I decided to escape in the only way I knew how. If Adrian wouldn't leave me, I'd turn him into the villain. I'd project all the ugly, disgusting things I'd suffered onto him. That way, he'd eventually get sick of me, sick of all the confusion and pain. Just like Rachel Carter, my former best friend, I made myself believe she was one of my tormentors, so she'd keep her distance. I waited for Adrian to give up on me, but my memory would always come and go, over and over again. I made you out to be so terrible, Adrian. Didn't you ever feel wronged? Why didn't you ever give up on me? By the time my tears fell onto the screen of my phone, I couldn't see anything clearly anymore. Suddenly, someone knelt down next to me. It was Ethan Brooks. The truth is, Ethan Brooks was just someone I made up. He only showed up again because Adrian was gone, and I'd stopped taking my medication. If you look closely, everything made sense. The medication was dissolved in the milk. Ivy Lane appeared because I'd refused to take my meds. When the drugs wore off, my mind conjured her up. When I thought I was pregnant, it was because Adrian finally promised to stop putting the medication in my milk. When Ethan snuck me out that night, it was after I'd secretly dumped my pills for several days. But once Adrian forced me to take them again, Ethan's health declined. Because as I slowly started the medication again, I stopped needing to imagine him. Now that Ethan had reappeared, it must have meant Adrian wasn't there, and I hadn't been taking my meds. Thinking back, a lot of things suddenly made sense. I followed Ethan over to Adrian's suitcase. I'd never paid attention to what he packed before, but now I went crazy rummaging through his things, until I found a notebook, a leather-bound notebook. On the cover, it said, Claire's Treatment Diary, May 11th, Sunny. Today, Claire had another memory lapse. This time, she imagined I was her high school bully. Honestly, I never get the good roles. Claire, couldn't you imagine me as your savior just once? I'm about to die of frustration here. May 12th, Sunny. Burning my wrist with a cigarette actually hurts. But when I think about the pain you once endured, it hurts me even more. Claire, I never lied to you. If I can't take away your pain, at least let me suffer the same as you. May 15th, cloudy. A bit pissed off. This girl really is bold. She poured milk on my head, though I poured it back. Since the medicine dissolves so well in milk, I usually give her meds that way. But now she refuses to drink. Can't coax her into it. May 18th, sunny. Sigh. Looks like I still have to give her meds. Just like before, Claire started making up people again. This time the new character is a woman named Ivy Lane. Wait, isn't that the name you used for yourself in that kung fu video game you used to play in high school? You gave me a name in that game too. Ethan Brooks. The doctor says I need to keep playing along. Sigh. I'm practically an Oscar-winning actor at this point. May 27th, sunny. Do you really think stuffing a pillow under your shirt means you're pregnant? Honestly, we all noticed. Claire. Even your silly moments are cute. June 1st, sunny. She hurt me, Claire. That night, my sister came to visit, and Claire started acting strange. I guess it's because I hadn't given her meds for a few days, and she started hallucinating again. But I didn't expect her to grab a knife from the table and stab herself. She was muttering all sorts of things, probably more delusions. When I held her, she even managed to stab me a few times. She kept shaking her head and rolling her eyes. It was so serious, I had to slap her to snap her out of it. I didn't expect her to remember that part. I'll have to let her slap me back next time. Okay? June 4th, sunny. Woke up in the hospital, didn't write for a few days. Turns out, I lost a lot of blood too. Claire, those stabs were really not in the best places. June 5th, sunny. Claire won't talk to me. Don't feel like writing anymore. June 8th, rain. Well, I can only sneak into your room at night to look at you, because you hate me, after all. June 9th, rain. It's okay. The one thing I'm never afraid of is you hating me. June 13th, sunny. Claire ran away, all by herself. I was furious. I don't think I've been this mad in a long time, but I found her in the end. She kept mumbling, "Ethan Brooks, you really did imagine me up, didn't you?" June 20th, rain. Claire can't skip her meds. Honestly, no matter how mad she makes me, I can never really stay angry. No matter how much she fights me, I just can't. I secretly bought her a new place to live, so she could stay there every day, and I could supervise her meds. June 25th, rain. Ugh, Ethan Brooks is so annoying. How am I actually jealous of someone who doesn't exist? July 1st, rain. After a month of hard work, making sure Claire took her meds, Ethan Brooks finally disappeared from her mind. Claire, don't be sad anymore. Can you just look at me? July 6th, sunny. Claire's been good lately, but is she really? I don't know. Seeing her like this, I can't help but wonder if things are actually getting worse. July 16th, sunny. What do I have to do to make you see me? Forget it. I'll just stay optimistic. July 29th, snow. We made it to New Zealand. Looks like this girl actually likes traveling, doesn't she? Claire. Did you know? Whenever you smile just a little bit, it makes me insanely happy. August 2nd, sunny. Claire wants that silly elf. If you asked for the stars, I'd reach up and grab them for you. Do you know what my wish is? I just want you to be happy. All those memories, if you can't remember, that's okay. They don't matter. Compared to your happiness, nothing else is important. The diary ends here. Outside, the wind and snow lash against the window all night long. That's right, today is August 3rd. Of course you didn't have time to write, Adrian. You were out in the storm, weren't you? The distant mountains trembled, and I couldn't tell if the wind was strong enough to blow your soul away. They said there was an avalanche on the mountain. They said there was still another group trapped up there. They said, call for help, call the rescue team. Snow blanketed the mountains, blinding everyone. I suddenly remembered the night before you left, the way you touched my head. You said, "Don't say things like that, Claire. Sometimes words have a way of coming true." The dark mountains swallowed up the white snow. I ran out of the lodge, but the mountain path stretched endlessly. The snow was coming down so hard. I knelt in the snow, crying, shouting your name over and over. Teach, so you finally remembered everything? Rachel Carter stood outside the hospital room, arms crossed, looking up at me. She glared. So, did you remember that I used to be your best friend? I didn't say anything. That day, I didn't do or say anything. You were the one who lost it. My brother got stabbed a few times trying to stop you. You and my brother have been married for 4 years now. She sighed. Rachel never really liked me, I knew that. With a personality like hers, she couldn't stand being misunderstood. I pushed open the hospital room door. Adrian was still unconscious. I sat next to him, tracing his features, his nose, his lips. Late at night, it was always so quiet. Rachel had left, and I'd been staying by Adrian's bedside for days. On a whim, I leaned in and kissed him. Somehow, that gentle kiss turned into something deeper. I could almost swear. He responded. I opened my eyes in surprise. In the darkness, Adrian's black eyes were open, deep, bottomless. Crying again? Such a crybaby. His voice was hoarse, light, and teasing. I remembered, back in high school, whenever I did badly on an exam and cried, he would pinch my cheek and call me a crybaby too. Thinking about that made me cry even harder. I kept calling his name, again and again. Yeah, I hear you. There was a smile in his voice. He hooked his finger around mine. Adrian, I've already been in hell for a long time. I'm not worth all you've done for me. Those terrible memories were real. My body was broken. I'd been swallowed by darkness a long time ago. But Adrian didn't care. The people who hurt you got what they deserved. They all died in prison. Not long after they were locked up, their enemies took care of them. When they died, it was ugly. So it's fine, Claire. You're a good person. You're cleaner than anyone. The ones who were filthy already paid for it. You say you're in hell? Fine. It doesn't matter. Adrian Carter will walk with you. Wherever it is. Anywhere. Extra. That afternoon in their junior year, Adrian Carter actually had a fight with Claire Evans. The sound of cicadas was maddening, And that day, neither of them wanted to back down, so they didn't go home together. Adrian stayed in the classroom. By the time he got frustrated with the third physics problem, he threw his pen down. He pulled out his phone and sent her a message. Wow, impressive. I say a couple words and you just ignore me. Not going to reply? Fine, don't bother replying ever again. Outside the window, the sound of an ambulance suddenly wailed past. He stared at the setting sun. Then he put away his phone and followed the crowd of nosy students to see what was going on. His phone screen still showed those last few messages he'd sent. Tisk, who spoiled you to have a temper like this? Ha ha ha. Turns out it was me. If this chapter moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Nova Media. Thanks for listening.